set of tribal rules governing it, and the tribes from that area had similar tribal practices to, be able to work in harmony together.
Mm-hmm.
So now when we coming back out of it, it's not going to look the same way it did before we went into it, because they changed all of the lines. They changed the way that we separated land and people. Yeah, but Justin Trudeau is the president of Canada. His ass gonna be locked up. He gonna be Gitmo if he ain't already, because he already been replaced with actor,
Right.
with central casting,
Right.
for a couple years now. So, and a lot of the people in Canada recognized it too, because they were saying something about it, like that don't look like him.
That came Washington D.C. and created their own government. And
All of their fans is in the George Washington Masonic Memorial display.
Bumped them.
Go look at the fans. They know whose they is. You can do the research on the fans. They're going to tell you who fans it is. All of the fans is in the George Washington Masonic Memorial. Those was the ones that challenged us to the Conjure Wars.
I'm trying to figure out, did we give them that or did they come with it? Because it's like they want these guys came over here. We already had the mounds.
Well, we've been doing the craft longer than they have, but they don't know that. They thought we was just savage primitives when it came to the crafts. So then they tried to villainize the ones of us that practice and kill off the priestesses and call it the witch hunts.
Yeah, voodoo and Salem witch projects. The Salem witch.
And then now they hunting down the medicine men, trying to steal this knowledge so they can set up their pharmacia hospitals.
Yeah, Dr. Savy, all etc.
Yeah. They strategies have not changed. They repeatedly doing the same thing over and over. If you watch the pattern, it's eventually going to reveal who's behind the pattern.
Right.
When did the pattern start? What's the interrupt? Because as soon as you interrupt the pattern, you break the paradigm. And this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to break the paradigm. And the more the paradigm break, the more Trump looked like one of them cartoons. Running around trying to keep up.
Damn sure right. It's a lot of lies just around in what Columbus, that Christopher Columbus whole thing. Like we heard that he was a brother helped him sail. We heard
he was a Moor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Christopher Columbus was a Moor. And Pietro del Negro was the navigator. He was classified as a blackamoor.
Yeah.
That means he was blue-black.
Right, yeah, dark nigga.
Right. And Christopher Columbus was just classified as a Moor. He was a Spanish Moor.
Uh-huh.
So he was swarthy, but he wasn't dark.
Yeah.
Right. So we would call him today he was a high yellow nigga.
Right. About Obama.
Yeah,
even high yellow than him. Now let me ask you, they said that Columbus is the one that came to America and brought the corn over to Africa. Now, why is I'm seeing Africans thousands of years with corn before Christopher Columbus?
They got to make an excuse for the corn to originate over here and be in ancient cultures. They was trying to cover all that up by giving a backstory of contributions to a thief.
Yeah.
Right? We know that the Anunnaki was growing corn in Sumer.
Yeah.
Because they got it painted on the walls.
Right.
But we know corn originated over here with Tahuti out of the monkey village, right? Botany, where he was growing the different vegetables to form the dietary base of the same food stock that the humans was made from, the carbon of corn. So corn became the celebratory food of all of the indigenous cultures, North and South America.
Right, and the rituals and things. Yep, Masons do it in their rituals. Yep.
Yeah, there's prosperity, abundance. The more corn we grow, corn is a ritual food for the tribes, especially when you start going to the Southwest. But notice it's primarily desert.
Go ahead.
They have to trade cactus for corn from the desert where the grass meet the desert at. Trading posts. And then they go back and use the stuff they got and mix the corn and make their dishes.
That makes sense.
You got stuff that grow in the desert, but it won't grow in regular soil. It's not conducive for its habitat. Right. But that doggone cactus is durable. That sucker grow in the wintertime.
And you can drink a lot. You can get water out of the cactus. Hey, so you thinking that it's a lot of foods that they saying that's bad for us now that we were eating thousands of years, and then all of a sudden now they saying that like I just to a lot of herbalists, they talk about corn is acidic, corn is bad, it's don't break down into your intestines. But then why did we design it? And why were we eating it thousands of years and never had any problems? Then all of a sudden now we got problems out of eating corn. We've eating corn thousands of years.
Well, remember, they don't want us to eat bison, they want us to eat beef.
Yeah.
Right? Beef not good for us either.
Go ahead.
But it tastes good.
Yeah.
The taste remind us of bison.
Yeah.
And all only thing is our uncles down south gonna figure out how to cook it.
Right.
The pit masters.
Right.
The Pitman clan.
Right.
Right? They know how to cook with the fire in the hole.
Right.
This all cultural.
Yeah.
So they if you eat your cultural diet, it'll tune your frequency in. What the hell? I'm tripping because I'm blinking like you can't really be the spirit of the mushroom.
Yeah.
And then he showed me all of this stuff about mushrooms I didn't know. And then I was sitting there skeptical as can be. And then it started coming across my feed, everything he told me. From the elk in the mushroom to the proboscis monkey in the mushroom to the psilocybins that lights up the dark cave as fluorescence, right? And I was like, damn, I didn't know none of that stuff before psilocybin told me. And then and then he asked me, he's like, you know why I like the name psilocybin? I was like, no. He said, because it sounds like silly ass Cyrus. I'm over here dying laughing, Rich, because he's giving me all of this stuff. But when I start really knowing that it was some real spiel, is when my regular feed started showing me everything he told me on the trip. Right? Man. That means that whatever the psilocybin, because he said you can access the information of the psilocybin network. It's the same as the neural network if you have the love for the mushroom, the psilocybin. And one of my favorite things on my pizza is mushrooms. Always have been. I can eat a mushroom pizza with nothing but mushroom, cheese, and sauce. Right? So I always like
But man, Rob, welcome back to the platform, Rob. Welcome back, man.
Good to be here, Rich. Good to be here. Today we talk about paper genocide, right?
Yeah. So all right. So I wasn't even gonna have this show tonight, family. Originally my intentions was to have another show, but I ended up calling Rod Hayes earlier about something personal. I wanted to ask Rod a question. I was doing ancestry. I was digging up my ancestry, looking up some. I think my sister had looked something up on ancestry.com, one of them sites, and I was looking at the birth certificate of my great grandmother. And you know, my folks is from South Carolina.
Land of the Gullah Geechee.
Yeah, Branchville, South Carolina. And I noticed on the certificate, her husband said colored when it said race, and her race said Negro. So I was talking to my sister. I was like, well, why is it colored and Negro? Why isn't both of them colored or both of them Negro? Why is one? What the hell is the difference in 18 something about colored and Negro? So I called Rod Hayes, and he started chopping it up with me about paper genocide and all of that. And we got into a real good conversation. I was like, Rod, man, we might as well have a show tonight. So that's how we got here. And it's a deep conversation. It's a conversation that is gaining more and more popularity as we remember who we are as it pertains to this land. And Rod Hayes, man, let's have this conversation in front of the people. In terms of, like, I was telling you about the birth certificate, and I was telling you about the Negro and the color, and you was telling me about the paper genocide. What exactly do you mean out there for those who may not be aware?
Well, the paper genocide it's been going on since they've been here, but the reclassification of us on paper to not be native, to not be natural to the land is the goal of the paper genocide. So they did things that changed who we were on paper so that in the future they can say we somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to disassociate us from the land. We got to keep that at the forefront of our minds when we study in the African slave narrative, the invasion of Europe into the Americas. We got to always keep in front of the forefront of our mind that everything they finna do after 1492 was to make the people from the land mentally, psychologically disassociate from the land. And the side effect of that is you denying your spirituality, your natural spirituality, because your natural spirituality springs from the things that you do on your land. We don't claim the land. We say we belong to this land. The land don't belong to us. That's why we can't sell it. In the paper genocide, they was, using war machine to push us back further and further west until they got Spanish pushing back to the east. We got the French stuck in the middle in what we call the Louisiana Territory. That was all of Canada and everything west of Appalachia, east of the Rockies, down into the New Orleans capital of the empire at the time. We didn't do intake on the coast board, the Eastern Coast Board, until after we were fighting what we called a two-tier war, collateral attack of French and Spanish forces. The French was called Huguenots. The Spanish were called conquistadors, but the English was called the gentry. So they went to King George because we was fighting French in the Louisiana Territory, Spanish in the Florida Territory. So what ended up happening was they put Georgia as a military buffer zone of gentry. So they put the English between the Spanish and the French while we were fighting. In order to, but when the French lost, they had to leave. But they sent us back a gift called the Statue of Liberty, a drag queen. Right. So now that they got this military buffer zone, they have to bulldoze the people out of that area to set up their military barricades, which became later cities. Atlanta is ancient. Savannah is ancient. But a lot of the lesser cities throughout Georgia were military outposts before they was incorporated as cities. And that was to put there to stop the assistance in the Gullah Wars of the rest of the tribes that was marching in coming from the West. That's how come they knew how the French lost. So now the English and the Spanish is the only ones left. The Spanish decided to take Mexico, which then consisted of Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, Arizona, and I think Nevada and parts of, I think, Utah. It was one of them, either Utah or Colorado. But they won it in the Mesoamerican War agreement between, now remember, these treaties has nothing to do with us. We didn't sign no treaties with these people. They signed in the treaties with each other, the French, the Spanish, and the English. But they telling us that these treaties is the governing instruments of law to our land. These treaties don't have nothing to do with us. There's no little river running because we use names that are related to nature. Right? There is no sunset over the mountain. There ain't none of them names in none of the treaties. They got Chief John Smith. Who the hell made him the chief? Because it wasn't no John Smith chiefs over here yet. Because we wasn't using European names yet. So when they doing all of these treaties, so they Mexico ceded the states that we have in the Southwest as part of the treaty to end the Mesoamerican War. France did not cede the Louisiana Territory because they had fought to a stalemate. When they was leaving, they sold it as a protectorate right. Some of the local chiefs signed protectorate agreements with the French. If they don't invade the land, they can protect us from the sea. That was what they were supposed to do. Then they fought for the Port Nola, which became the Fort New Orleans. They fought for that, and that's how they end up having what's called protectorate rights. But that's not right to settle, squat, salvage, pillage, rape, demean people, murder indiscriminately across the land. All of these things they've done since the purchase. They was never supposed to cross the Appalachian Mountains. That's in they record. They know they wasn't never supposed to cross the Appalachians. So everything west of the Appalachians is what we call hostile occupied territory of a foreign agent. America had nothing to do with us. It's all an illusion. It's a grand design to erase us on paper first, but once we believe they hype, we disassociate from the land. That's why they keep pointing us to Africa. See, we took the immigrants in Port Nola. They weren't allowed to come in nowhere. The Big Easy was the sorting ground. This is where your temperament tested. You get sent to a parish. If you function in that parish and this is your temperament, then they tell you where across the land you can settle, because now they know you ain't got to get your head split by them Bloods and Crips out west, because they going to send you to the Midwest because your character type, personality, and disposition fit in with vice lords and GDs way better than Bloods and Crips, because they going to get you. Right? So a lot of people was directed to what we called in that day Shinnecock territory. Today you know it as New York. That's Shinnecock territory. And they had the Shinnecock Nation consists of varying other tribes that was tied to their leadership in an affiliation of tribes that stretch from Maine all the way to what you call the Great Lakes State, Michigan, where Pennsylvania butts up against, what's that, Lake Huron, I think, or Erie. I keep forgetting. But anyway, the lakes, all of that territory coming from the Lake Superior in the north, coming down into Lake Huron, all that was Shinnecock territory, but they had tribes. They had Mohawk, Tomahawk. They had all of the names are exonyms. The Mohawk didn't call themselves Mohawk. the people called them Mohawk, and the name began to be written in literature. That's how you know who they are. The Apache didn't call themselves the Apache, but that's what the settlers called them, right? And in those names being who they was recognized at in the reading material that was being disseminated, they have to go by the name that's written on the paper in order for the people that's doing the reading to know who they are. It's just like Cherokee. Cherokee is not a tribal name. It's an exonym. And it was used when we was using English language and dealing with English colonizers, which looked like me. They look more like me than any pale face from Europe. The first settlers that came from Columbus expedition to the Mayflower to all of those were melanated people. We didn't start getting other people until they started advancing and getting land from us through the sweetheart swindle and murdering big mamas in order to turn family plots into plantations. It's all part of the paper genocide. So that's what the purpose of it is. The purpose of it is to make the people think they from another part of the earth and they have no claim to this part of the earth.
Mm-hmm. You know, I heard years ago, I remember I think Sonetta was filming at this time, and he did a video. It might have been with Dr. Eileen Bay. It was somebody, and the Morse brother was saying that they had to do Hurricane Katrina because they had to give up that land back to, I guess, the Washita, that they had to get the land back to the Washita or something like that.
They still ain't got it back. So that can't be accurate. But they was trying to build a casino complex in the Ninth Ward, where all the most amount of people left. Mm. They was mad at them people. It was vengeance. Nobody wanted to give up their little quarter-acre plot with their house on it that their grandmama was living in, and her mama lived in. They didn't want to give it up because that's our culture. That's part of who we is. Once we get a plot of land, you almost got to use a welder to separate us from it. Mm. You know, so when they was trying to get the Ninth Ward, they wanted to build a casino complex. That's what that was about. Katrina was about casino money and getting people off the land and they end up not using it. There's still a whole lot of vacant territory over there. I think it's called the Ninth Ward, if I'm not mistaken. Mm. But they was planning on building a whole bunch of casinos, like 5 major casinos and then some hotels and restaurants and stuff, and the people didn't want to sell.
So Rod, around what year was they reclassifying people as, did they start reclassifying people as Negro and colored?
As soon as they start, well, the year-wise is subjective because none of those terms, we didn't describe people by skin color. We described them by character, right? We tie them to a totem and ascribe them to a character. Like, for instance, let's say Chief Standing Elk. That means he a stand-up dude and his totem is the elk, right? Chief Little River, right? He's a short dude, but his character flows like the river. This is how we name people. We didn't name people group names or classifications. Professions was named after the people that did the work. All of the Smiths were metal workers. All Smiths on this land they were metal workers, but we didn't call them Smiths. Smiths is a European term for people over there that did the same thing, metal workers. So they came over here, they named this whole family the Smiths. Right. So now all these people were Smiths. But then you had subgroups. You got the goldsmith, you got the blacksmith, right? And that means that the goldsmiths was the ones that was melting down the gold, making the bars. The blacksmith was the ones who wrought the iron and made the fences and the gates that went around the family cemetery plot to keep the kids from playing on the ancestors. right? So stuff like that we did naturally. This is already who we are. The family that was building the bridges, the European come over here and call their tribe the Bridges. Now you got all these people running around like Ty Bridges thinking he from Africa, and then he got some European name, last name Bridges.
Wow, damn. Hey, Ross,
all the time you organic to the land.
What percentage of Africans came to the U.S. versus, let's say, the Caribbean and South America?
That's less than 5%.
That's a small number, right? You
got to remember.
You confident in that number? That's damn 5.
They told us that they brought 30 million niggas from Africa over here to North America in the South. And we was all on the plantations in the South. 30 million niggas from Africa. Them Africans' temperament ain't like that. You not finna put no 30 million Zulu, Dinka, Mandinka. You not finna put no 30 million of them nowhere and have peace. You gonna lose. We was already here and they was makeshifting family farms into plantations. And they was telling the family that worked the yard, worked the farms, they wasn't allowed to leave because there was a war going on.
Right.
That was the great deception. And the Masons got a record of it all. So why won't they bring their ass out and start talking? Oh, raised and past ass niggas. Hiram told you motherfuckers to get to moving and y'all sitting there acting like that shit ain't true. So you don't even believe the shit you teach. Jabaline, Jubaline, and Job. Man, all of them. They know what's going on. The Mason seal is on the chief's shackles that was ransomed back to the tribe. The Masonic symbol is on that. Them wasn't no slaves, they was ransoms. It's a book called Moors and Masonry that talk about how they was ransoming them back to the tribe. The leader, that they capture your leader, and then they realize the dumbest shit in the world is to let them have their leader back. Scatter the shepherd and strike the shepherd and scatter the flock. And
so, man, when we talk about Caucasian people, at this point with the mixing that went on, you was talking to me earlier. You're saying
man,
that
look, with all of them people that was the offspring of Mr. Charlie and them up in the big house, they done kicked Big Mama out the big house. They done murdered her. Now they got Uncle Charlie running the big house, this house nigga. And now he done hired these hands and he told them they could do whatever they want to them women out there. They ain't no kin to me. They'll sell their own mama. So what you think they're gonna do to our children? They'll sell their own children. So what you think they'll do to our mama? The only thing that got value to them is their brother. Oh, homosexual, pedophile, priest, cut ass niggas.
And who's they? Who's this they you talking about?
The
I don't want them to snatch this video, so don't curse too much.
I got you. I call myself. I get a little hyped up talking about them niggas because
I see.
They wrong, man. They so wrong on so many levels. But the problem is they got us fighting now about our status on the land after they done burnt down all of the records in Mississippi and Louisiana and Alabama and Arkansas and Florida and South Carolina. And we have the record of them burning down the records building, and then they tell us you can't trace your ancestry. Because every time I get to this point, it's a burnt down records building. You can't get past that. They done destroyed the records. Paper genocide. Paper genocide.
Right, who's they? Let's be more specific.
Them niggas whose feds is in George Washington Masonic Memorial, them the ones we was fighting. That's the leadership of the contingent of dirty Moors that came over here. All of their feds, with their names on it or their shrine on it, they had to be identified. We know who they is. And the ones that sided with us is all on the painting of the last Mayan chief. With all of them, and he got like Carlos V. That's King Charles V.
Okay.
But he took sides with us because he was part of kicking them out of Europe.
Okay. Let me ask you a question, Rod. Coming up in consciousness, the Moors always talked about John Hanson on the back of the $2 bill. Who's John Hanson, Rod? Whose team he was on? Whose side?
He was the first president of the Continental Congress. The Continental Congress was morphed from tribal leadership into leadership by these blood families that keep being elected president. They all related. They all related. So they was to be the ones to continue what they call the New World. Remember, everybody keep talking about the New World Order. The New World Order started in 1492 when they found the New World. The order for the New World is to fight for who it belongs to. Do the world belong to the people of the world, or do the world belong to the invaders? That's what this whole thing is, the New World Order. The whole U.S. military paradigm is the New World Order. How else you gonna get your conquered enemies' children to fight your wars with the coldest warfare minds on the planet if they don't believe that you them?
Yeah.
They were never supposed to let us in their military. We fought for that stuff. Why would we fight to be in their military? We needed somebody on the inside, baby. We gotta have a dog in every fight. You gotta expect to win, but you gotta have a dog handler that know his dog well enough to know which one of the dogs was his in the fight. Then he can go back and collect all his money.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And the German Shepherd Club, that was my dog over there. Yeah. Yeah. His name Redbone Reg. You see that one over there, the pit bull, that blue pit right there? Yeah, that's mine. Yeah. His name is Blue Head Buster. Right. I know my dogs. Wherever the chiefs make a move, a chief gonna be born that know his dog in the fight. Chief Zola, DMX. Tupac Amaru, the same pair as Crooks. Chief Sitting Bull, Notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace. Chief Crazy Horse, right? ODB, Wu-Tang Clan.